You ordered something from Temu last week, and it arrived in a cheerful orange package for less than the price of lunch. 130 million people in Europe did the same thing. Then EU investigators went shopping on the same app, and what they found in those packages cost Temu 200 million euros. It was April of 2023, and a shopping app with bright orange branding appeared on European phones almost overnight. Temu promised something that sounded too simple to be real: products shipped directly from Chinese factories to your front door, cutting out every middleman between the assembly line and your mailbox. The prices were staggering: a phone charger for €2, a set of children's toys for less than the price of a coffee, earrings and necklaces for what you might spend on a bus ticket. Within weeks of launching in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and the Netherlands, millions of people downloaded the app, curious whether those prices could possibly be real. The interface felt less like a store and more like a mobile game. Spin a digital wheel for bonus discounts, log in every day for accumulating rewards, share a referral link with friends, and earn credits toward your next purchase. The company spent $3 billion on marketing in a single year, including Super Bowl advertisements in the United States and partnerships with more than 10,000 influencers across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Those creators filmed themselves unboxing enormous hauls of Temu products, showing off dozens of items that cost less combined than a single purchase at a traditional European shop. The videos went viral, and the downloads followed. I explain EU enforcement cases like this every week. Subscribe to see the next one. By the middle of 2024, Temu reported more than 45 million monthly active users in the European Union. Some estimates placed the real number closer to 90 million, and climbing fast. Behind the cheerful app and the impossible prices sat a parent company called PDD Holdings, registered in Dublin but operating from Shanghai, with $54 billion in global revenue for that year alone. And for a while, nobody in Europe asked a simple question: what was actually inside those packages? The European Union passed a law called the Digital Services Act, and it works on a straightforward principle. If your online platform is large enough to shape what millions of people see and buy every day, you cannot simply wait for someone to get hurt and file a complaint. You have a legal obligation to actively search for the danger yourself, assess how serious it is, and take concrete steps to reduce it. In May of 2024, the European Commission officially classified Temu as a very large online platform under this law. That classification triggered the strictest set of obligations in the regulation. Temu had 4 months to conduct a thorough risk assessment of its own marketplace and submit it to Brussels. Temu delivered its risk assessment at the end of September of 2024. The document was long, detailed in appearance, and thoroughly unimpressive in substance. It described problems facing the online shopping industry in general. It cited sector-wide statistics about counterfeit goods and product safety issues that any large marketplace might theoretically encounter. What it did not do was examine Temu's own platform specifically, its own sellers, its own recommendation algorithms, or its own user data. The Commission read the submission and found it generic, disconnected from the realities of how Temu actually operated, and fundamentally inadequate for a platform of its scale and speed. The deeper problem was not just paperwork, it was architecture. Temu's recommendation engine pushed products toward buyers based on engagement signals and low prices, not on whether anyone had verified those products met European safety standards. Sellers who got suspended for listing dangerous items could reappear under fresh accounts with different names. Influencers promoted specific products to audiences of millions, and Temu never assessed whether those promotions amplified the visibility of items that were illegal to sell in Europe. The entire system was optimized for speed and volume, and safety was not part of the equation. The Commission sent a formal request for information in June of 2024, asking Temu to explain its systems for catching illegal products. A second request followed in October, demanding details about dark patterns in the interface, protection of minors, and how the recommendation system worked. By the end of October, the Commission had seen enough. It opened formal proceedings against Temu, announcing an investigation into illegal products, addictive platform design, algorithmic recommendations, and researcher data access. Then the Commission decided to do something remarkably simple. They sent investigators to go shopping on Temu exactly the way any European consumer would. Open the app, browse what the algorithm recommended, and order the products. This mystery shopping exercise targeted everyday items, the kind that end up on nightstands and in children's hands: chargers, adapters, baby toys, small electronics, and jewelry. The results came back from testing laboratories across Europe, and they were damning. A very high percentage of the chargers purchased from Temu failed basic electrical safety tests. These were not minor technical violations or labeling errors. They were the kind of failures that cause overheating, short circuits, and house fires. Baby toys contained chemicals at concentrations that exceeded legal safety limits, substances linked to developmental and reproductive harm in young children. Other toys had small detachable parts that posed clear choking and suffocation hazards for infants. These were not rare items buried deep in the catalog where nobody would find them. They were products the recommendation algorithm actively surfaced to new users browsing the app for the first time. A parent searching for a birthday gift would see these toys recommended before they ever scrolled past the first page. A student looking for a cheap charger would find the dangerous ones ranked alongside the functional ones, with no way to tell the difference from a product listing. The system did not just fail to catch dangerous products, it amplified them. Consumer protection groups across France, Denmark, and Germany ran their own independent tests. They purchased 81 products from Temu across categories including toys, electronics, jewelry, and cosmetics. 53 of those 81 products were classified as dangerous under European safety standards. That is not a handful of bad actors slipping through the cracks of an otherwise functioning system. That is a systemic failure at the platform level. In July of 2025, the Commission published preliminary findings confirming that Temu had breached its legal obligations under the Digital Services Act. The platform's risk assessment was not a genuine attempt to identify and mitigate harm. It was generic paperwork submitted by a company that was growing too fast to examine what it sold. Temu's official response called the findings disproportionate and unfair. A company spokesperson said the decision related to the Commission's first evaluation in 2024 and did not reflect the current state of their systems. The Commission was unmoved. On the 28th of May 2026, it imposed a fine of 200 million euros, the largest penalty ever levied against a digital marketplace under this law. The statement from Brussels was direct. Risk assessments are not box-ticking exercises, officials said. They are the backbone of the Digital Services Act. Temu must now submit a detailed action plan by August of 2026, explaining precisely how it will fix the failures. The European Board for Digital Services will review that plan within 30 days and issue a public opinion on whether it is sufficient. The fine targeted one company, but the signal reached every major platform operating in Europe. Shein, the fast fashion marketplace built on a nearly identical model of factory direct ultra-low prices, faces its own formal proceedings under the same law. AliExpress received interim findings about the sale of illegal products on its platform. X, formerly known as Twitter, was fined over 120 million euros for separate transparency violations. The Digital Services Act is not a theoretical framework sitting on a shelf in Brussels. It is an active enforcement tool, and the Commission is using it. The shift is significant because of what came before. For more than a decade, online marketplaces operated under a comfortable assumption. They connected buyers and sellers, and if a product turned out to be dangerous, the seller bore responsibility. The platform was merely infrastructure, a neutral pipe through which commerce flowed. That logic made sense when platforms were passive directories. It stopped making sense when algorithms began choosing what every user saw, when recommendation engines became the most powerful salespeople on Earth, and when a single platform could put an unsafe product in front of 100 million people in a single afternoon. The Digital Services Act dismantled the old logic entirely. If your platform is large enough to shape what consumers encounter every day, you are responsible for understanding what flows through it. You cannot claim ignorance when your own algorithm decides what appears at the top of every feed. Next time you open that app and spot a deal that looks impossible, think about what impossible actually meant in this case. It meant a phone charger that could overheat and catch fire on your nightstand while you slept. It meant a baby toy with chemicals that should never have touched a child's skin. It meant a company that grew faster than any marketplace in European history and never once stopped to check whether what it shipped was safe. And it meant that eventually, someone decided to go shopping and find out. If you want to see how Apple hid $14 billion in a single office, that video is on screen now.